Hey guys, and welcome to my YouTube video about my training. I get a lot of questions from you guys about how I train, how many hours a week, nutrition, recovery, mountaineering, that kind of stuff. So I thought the best way to do this video is let you guys ask questions, and I got plenty on my Instagram Q&A. So me and my coach will attempt to answer all your questions on this video, and I will also show you what kind of training I do in a week. As a quick disclaimer before we start, we all know that we're all different. Just a human fact. And that means that not all regimens are suitable for everyone. The way I train is specific for my goals and for who I am, my time resources, my ability to commit to this regimen. So if you get any tips that you can integrate into your training from this, I am very happy about it, but I am in no way trying to tell that everyone should train this way. If you watched my intro video, you know that I have been active all my life. I even competed in sports. I was a competitive cheerleader and of course trained accordingly, trained really hard. But this regimen came in the picture about 1.5 years ago after I found myself a coach and after I started pursuing my mountaineering dreams in a full-time manner. Thank you to all my sponsors. Thank you. They are the reason why I can explicitly prioritize training and mountaineering goals, which is one of the reasons why I do not recommend this kind of regimen to everyone, because you have to have a balance of training and rest and recovery. But anyway, the reason why I train the way I do, which you'll find out soon, is because my coach, Don, always says that you race like you train. So when you go climbing, you'll climb the way that you have trained, the way you have trained your body, the way you're used to. And when the shit hits the fan and the going gets tough, it is what you have learned in your everyday life and in your everyday training that will kick in. So we will start with the questions. My first section, before we call in Dawn as well, is about motivation. And, well, first of all, why would I even train like this? What is my goal? That is mountaineering goals. Basically, I want to climb fast, I want to climb light, I want to climb in the right manner. I want to, you guys probably know that I don't climb with supplemental oxygen, and it makes climbing so much harder, especially the higher you go, the harder it gets. And to be in good shape and to be as fast as possible is safety. So basically, when you're climbing under a huge ice rack or something, you don't want to hang out there for a long time because you didn't do your training when you were back home. And this actually kind of answers to the second question as well. Which thing motivates you? Because of course it's my goals as well. I mean, it's my little ego saying that I want to be the best in what I do. I want to be the fastest. I want to try new routes. I want to go on an adventure. That's my main thing that motivates me. I also do feel like I owe it to my friends and family because I have put them in a bit of a weird place with my career right now, because it's not 100% sure that you will come back alive every time. So to say that speed and resilience are safety, I find it's my responsibility to, and my biggest motivation to go train. Every time I go train, I think of my friends and family and that I'm doing this for them. Well, do you ever feel unmotivated? If so, how do you get yourself motivated again? Yes, that has happened a few times. I find that the best way to get motivated again is to talk about it with my coach. Remember why you're doing it, and talk about it with a few of my mountaineering friends. For example, Matt Trandall. Go follow him on Instagram. He's very good climber and has a very similar approach to training as I do. But yeah, to admit that you're not feeling motivated, accept it, and then do it anyway. Like my brother, who's he's almost a master in philosophy, just writing his thesis, just said that, well, if you don't feel like doing it, try doing it anyway. That's how I get motivated. Next, we'll go to my regimen, what it is exactly. How many hours do I train a week? How many hours do I train a day? What is your weekly workout schedule on average, or a weekly routine? How many active and rest days? How long is your training and how often? So those are the next questions, and we will dial in Don. Okay, so we have Don Bowie on the line.
Hello. Coffee time.
Thank you for joining me for some coffee and discussion about training. Just
Sure.
quickly tell me, why are you training me? And what are you training me for?
Why I'm training you goes back, I'll just do the really brief version, but goes back to our experience on Aconcagua, which was about a year and a half ago now, when we really didn't know each other that well. And that day came where we went for the summit. Actually, prior to that, I started to notice how well you were doing. I kind of inquired about how well you were trained, and your opinion was that, you're pretty well trained, but I determined that you weren't really training specifically to become an endurance athlete. But long story short is that you really excelled on that trip. You floated the summit in a bad storm like it was nothing. We did it in very good time, made it back all the way. We did it from Camp 2. And after that, I really looked at you differently. I was like, wow, she possesses some native ability in terms of having an aerobic engine and becoming an endurance athlete. And that really piqued my interest. It really got me excited because I saw your genetic disposition in action. And I thought, wow, if we build on top of this, she could be really an aerobic endurance monster. And so that's what we've been doing, is training you to become really to see what your limitations are as an endurance athlete.
Yeah, and I'm definitely noticing a change. I mean, it's been a year and a half, and I just did a trail run in Lapland. It was 35 kilometers. It was my 5th day in a row doing 5-hour days. And after that, I was like, yeah, I could go again.
Yeah.
Which actually, a couple of years back, I did the same trail, just hiking, and in 7 hours, when I did it in 4 hours and 20 minutes this time. So
right. It'd be good to, I think, go back. What I think one of your goals, upcoming goals, should be is to do that carangueros. Is that what it's called?
Carangueros, yes.
Yeah, exactly how you say it. But because the last time you did it with heavy packs, mind you, with Marita. And what was your time on that?
27 hours.
27 hours. So that would be a good benchmark, because you guys did that right before I met you.
Yeah. Oh, true.
Yeah.
Okay,
so that would be
I'll film it.
Great benchmark. Yeah. Yeah.
But let's get.
Now we're being very methodical. So before your training, I inquired what your training was. You remember we went on that hike in Nuxia when we first met, when I was on my way back from Russia, when you and Marita and myself met.
By the way, Marita is one of my good friends. She loves the outdoors, nature. She's on my Lot the Basics video telling the things she admires about me or likes about me. So if you guys want to check it out, then there. Anyway.
Yeah, so what was I saying?
You're inquiring about my training.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so prior to going to Aconcagua, I asked specifically what your training was and Marita's training was, and Marita was putting in a little bit more regimented training. But since that time, since we've started training together, we have really applied the principles that I've learned that are extremely methodical. So now we're looking at this extremely methodically in terms of how we build you into an endurance athlete: nutrition, rest, and training, and also technical, the technical side of mountaineering, so that we put that all together in a package. And the mental.
Yeah, mental, definitely. Yeah. Would you like to give a short kind of introduction? I'll be showing, because I got a lot of questions from my followers on Instagram about how many hours I train in a week, how many hours I train a day, a month, and stuff like that. And it varies all the time. So would you like to give a brief kind of introduction to the cycle we're in right now and what cycles we're going to do?
Sure. Well, we're functioning on the principle that is derived from world-class athletes and coaching of world-class athletes, primarily Nordic skiers, Scandinavian Nordic skiers, and through cyclists from the Tour de France. And the idea is to really focus and isolate our energy systems, that being our aerobic energy system and our anaerobic energy system. And it's based on a principle of overreach, stressing the body, and then recover, which we call overreach, and then the adaptations your body makes to that stress during rest. So that's the basic principle. And so we build those systems and divide them in half. So really there are 4 functional phases during our training system. The first is aerobic base, or extensive aerobic training, which is the cycle that we're in right now, then intensive aerobic, then extensive anaerobic, and then intensive anaerobic after that. So the base is the biggest building block of an aerobic athlete, and an endurance athlete in particular. And the way that we stress the body in that period is through longevity. So we're not as concerned with how many miles you train. What we're concerned with is how many hours you train. So we're in a 20-week extensive aerobic phase. And what we're trying to build is overreach through hours. And that's done by building up how many hours you're training in one particular day, and then how many days in a row successively that we're building those through this 20-week building period.
Yeah, so let's give a glimpse of what my training was a week before. Right now I'm on rest week, but the week before it was like this. That was a tough one, 4.5 hours. Nutrition was off because I hit a bump and all my raisins flew out from the box when I was eating, so my energy levels crashed a little until I found the next grocery store. Okay, I'm going inside. All the mosquitoes. So to answer the question, how many hours do I train in a week? This is mid-cycle of aerobic endurance cycle, and it was 28 hours altogether. So how will I be training the week after my rest week? Rest week is, by the way, when I get stronger. So I'm very happy to be taking it easy this week.
Yeah, the emphasis is on that rest, right? Because we're building stress, we're building overreach, we're building essentially getting you tired, getting you exhausted, and fatigue. And then how your body responds to that stress is the rest week. And so we do it in cycles. You get a rest day or 2 during every week, and then that sort of goes up. and then we'll put 3 weeks on or 4 weeks on, dependent, and then you'll come off a week, and then it's a continual upward trend. And so after a rest week, usually you should be feeling pretty fresh if you rested well. That's why we've been working on having focus on resting well, because you don't rest really well. You're learning and progressing to get better at really letting down, especially physically, but also mentally, because that, you don't want to be in a heightened state during that week. So after, we'll start off pretty slow just to get your body back used to some exercise. So the first 1 or 2 days, just get the blood flowing, and then we'll layer on a little bit longer. So what we're doing is we're bumping up your daily hourly training session in Z2, which is your the primary zone which we're training in. And then also we'll bump up how many days in a row. So that'll probably go to, say, like the 29 hours or 30 hours. By the time we're done this next session, we'll add a couple hours in the week. And the reason why we're doing that so slowly, well, you know why we're doing that so slowly. We're ramping. Why do we? Yes, exactly. You don't get injured. And it's interesting to note that at the end of your last training session, what happened?
I wasn't injured.
Well, no, you were. Remember, you started to get.
It was because I hit a tree.
Okay, well.
I fell onto a tree. I tripped.
But you're more
crashed into a tree.
But you're more susceptible to injury when you're that exhausted.
Yeah.
After like a training phase and a few days on, you're more susceptible to injury. So you have that sort of quad pull, and now you're hopefully that's not going to be something that's going to sit around. But we're continuing to push you up on a ramp that is sustainable and injury preventative.
So if the question that I have here is, what features are you trying to develop and in which ways, it would be ramping up, overreaching. And at this point, we're trying to develop my aerobic endurance. But if I was doing some other, or if I was in another cycle, for example, strength, and anaerobic, what was the next cycle I was supposed to
extensive aerobic, or intensive aerobic would be your next step.
Yeah, so would I be increasing intensity or?
Yeah, so for example of that, just like the difference between extensive and intensive with respect to the first aerobic cycling, and I don't mean road cycling, I mean the cycle of training. So extensive would be you're stressing yourself by going longer. Intensive would mean we're stressing your aerobic system by going harder. So the next phase, once we get through this 20-week build phase, when we go to intensive aerobic training, those are high intensity intervals that will start somewhere around 10 or 15 minutes at a minimum at what we call sweet spot or near your functional threshold power, your lactate.
We've been doing those in previous cycles as well.
Yeah, we've been doing those a little bit, but that's not been the main emphasis of your training. So during the next cycle, that will be the main emphasis of your training. So you'll go out, your training 1 or 2 days a week will be continuing with that long base training in Z2. And then your other cycling, you'll actually have less hours because you'll be stressing yourself more through intensity.
Yeah.
And you can work yourself up to where your intervals in that intensive aerobic session can work up to 2-hour-long intervals. It's one of the hardest.
I think I've done that already before.
Yeah, when you start to do that a few days in a row, though, it's one of the hardest periods of training that I think. Yeah, it's intensive aerobic.
Yeah. People are asking, how do I do strength training and is it necessary in my sport? Well, for example, today I went to the climbing gym and I feel like in addition to being good or important for climbing technique, when we're climbing more technical routes, it's also pretty good strength training. And,
yeah, very much.
Yeah, I also add it in my activation before my training sets, so I get some of that. But how important would you consider it?
I think it's reasonably important. The thing about Himalayan climbing, which is our goal, right? The goal is for you to excel at high altitude. Even
Without
the hard, I'm sorry, without oxygen. Yeah. So we're really focused on your endurance, but at the same time, that means less muscular strength. Though the strength is important, but muscular endurance.
yeah.
So because even on K2 or Annapurna or these really difficult technical peaks, they aren't really technical compared to sort of sport climbing, right?
Yeah.
So you might need some short bursts. You might need the technical ability, but in terms of that muscular strength, we're more looking for muscular endurance. So your strength training is climbing in the gym, and that also increases your technical ability, your activation, but also stair stepping, uh,
Yeah,
uh,
I'm doing a lot of
big stairs the incline,
yeah.
cycling, which is really on your lower body, and running uphill. Those things are increasing muscular endurance and strength as well.
All right. Well, then I have a few questions here about what is your VO2 max? It was the last time I checked it, it was 47, but we don't really pay attention to it a lot, do we?
That's right. VO2 max is not, it used to be, but it's not that important anymore as an indicator of how you're going to perform. If you look at the top athletes in the world, cyclists, for example, their VO2 maxes are all over the map. They're not always exclusively high. So it's not necessarily that indicator. What we're more concerned with is your lactic heart rate threshold, which is that point at which you move from aerobic into anaerobic exercise. And we're looking to extend what we call your time to fatigue at that threshold, and also raise that level of lactic heart rate threshold, or in cycling, your functional threshold power.
Yeah, and that is also how we determine the zones when or during training.
Yeah, your training zones exactly are relative to your lactic heart rate or functional threshold power on a bike, FTP on a bike, lactic heart rate with running. They're all relative to that point which you go between aerobic and anaerobic.
So, last question, when it comes to training, would you recommend this regimen to people aspiring to be mountaineers or also some other people? Or these methods, not this regimen. Not everyone has the luxury of dedicating this many hours a week.
Well, that's one of the issues, right? It's time constraint. That it takes a lot of time to build a really solid aerobic engine. It takes time because, again, we're overreaching, we're stressing our body. You have to think of it like doing curls with bicep curls with weights. You're not getting stronger by doing the curls. You're getting stronger when your body says, "Ow, that hurts," and then your reparations that the body makes, those adaptations make your muscles stronger. So it's the same thing with your aerobic system. If you're stressing it, it's going to get stronger. But in order to stress it, you have to go longer, not more intense. But that is one of the issues of that, is that you have to have a lot of time. I mean, people 28 or 30 hours worth of training in a week is like a full-time job, and that's why
you got to rest and recover after that and dedicate time for that as well.
Exactly. And people know what to do. I followed this regimen or I do this exercise, but they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so if you look at somebody who's trying to build, anybody, an endurance runner, cyclist, anybody, or a climber, somebody who's hiking, anybody who wants to build an endurance aerobic system has to do it by stressing themselves, by going longer. And it will benefit any endurance or ultra endurance sport by incorporating that into their training.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite parts about training, like getting to the point when you're like, oh, this hurts or this sucks or this is uncomfortable. And that's where I get the kick, like, all right, now we got started.
Yeah.
This is when I'm getting stronger.
Yeah, and then you have to put that time in. What's really interesting is that now at the end of your training cycle, and as you progress over the years too, this is going to be persistent and you're going to build on this over the years, is that say somebody goes out at a given intensity for 2 hours, and at the end of that 2 hours, they're tired because they're reaching their aerobic capacity at that intensity. You right now, we have to put 4 hours into you just so you can reach that point. Yeah, even 5 hours. Yeah, 5 hours into you, just so you can start to exhaust yourself at Z2 for that given period. That's phenomenal. Well, pretty soon, when I'm at my fittest, my long days are 6 hours, sometimes 7, sometimes even 8 hours. So I'm looking for to overreach on a bike or overreach. And in order to do that for you right now, you've got to put that time in.
Yeah.
Whereas a year ago, it was only 2 hours.
Yeah, so the most difficult part of my training currently is the creativity that I need to entertain myself during this training.
Yeah. And that's why I think cycling is so cool, is because you get to, you're it's really low impact. You get to cover a lot of territory. You can go almost anywhere. And that's why we have cycling as a primary base exercise for you in building your endurance right now.
Yeah, and I really like it. So to end this video, to this question, favorite workout forms, I would say currently they are um, cycling and, well, I do like trail running and of course climbing, but Finland is like, so yeah. Anyway, thank you, Don, so much. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you next week.
See you
Bye.
again. Bye.